Welcome to Inside Track with Bruce Ash and Eb Wilkinson on the Live the Dream Media Network.
Hey, welcome everybody. Bruce Ash and
Eb Wilkinson.
Welcome back. We have another action-packed big Wednesday show for you today on Inside Track. Eb?
Hey there. Where are we? I don't even know where we're at. We're pleased to welcome.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, hang on just a second here. Thanks for joining us today. As Bruce just said, we've got another great show for you today on Big Wednesday. Joining us in just a few minutes, Washington Examiner and Homeland Secretary and immigration journalist Anna Giaritelli to discuss the Florida plan to make the Sunshine State safe again. In the second half of today's big show, we'll see American super lawyer Jamie Bopp from Indiana. He's going to talk about us with the Obama deep state conspiracy to disrupt the first Trump presidency, as well as what is likely the future of many of the coup plotters. Thanks for joining us on this morning of Live the Dream Media. Watch us on the app or on Facebook, YouTube, many other platforms. Bruce?
Eb and I support, this is professional radio today. Eb and I hope you'll support our sponsors who help us pay the man here at Live the Dream Media, Eb's great company, Wilkinson Wealth Management, our friend Eric Rudin at Essential Pest, Jamie Kipper at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail, and my family's three-generation company, Paul Ash Commercial Real Estate. When you call on any of our supporters, please let them know you found out about their business from Eb and Bruce on Inside Track. To talk with us or our guest today, call 520-771-5101 or send a message to us on the Live the Dream Media Facebook site. I was up at 4:30 today. Eb, go ahead.
Hey, we're pleased to welcome our first guest today, Anna Giaritelli, who's been with the Washington Examiner since 2015, reporting on Homeland Security, the war on drugs, border issues, domestic terrorism, and migration trends. Anna, by the way, has been to the U.S.-Mexico border at least 60 times more than the former Vice President Harris. Anna, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, you recently broke a big story about Florida's new program allowing certain illegal immigrants to voluntarily return to their home after being stopped by police during traffic stops. Talk about how this works and what the advantages are to assist the removals from the USA.
Yeah, so the state of Florida, certain law enforcement there have opted in to help ICE and Border Patrol, turning over people in local and state custody to the feds. And so what we encountered was while out with Florida Highway Patrol, they arrested a number of illegal immigrants for traffic offenses, brought them over to the Border Patrol. And now those people, once they're in Border Patrol custody, can opt to voluntarily depart the country or self-deport. And the state of Florida will pay for those commercial flights one way back to that individual's country of origin. And it's a pilot program. It's just been in the works for a month, but they're starting to see illegal immigrants opt into that instead of going to, say, another ICE detention facility for weeks or months on end.
This has got to save the U.S. a lot of money.
It is. Those flights are costing, some of the examples they gave us for next day or 2 days from now were under $100 one way. And so when you look at that, compared to detaining someone for months and then federal officers actually removing that person on a flight, it's a significant savings as far as spending. Mm-hmm.
Hey, let me pop in for just
Sure.
a second. Anna, thanks for joining us this morning. About how many illegals have participated in this program so far? Any numbers on that now?
DeSantis said it's been about two dozen so far.
So this just started.
It did. And just for perspective, this is only people who are in Border Patrol custody. Border Patrol has stations on the southwest border, the northern border, and then it has some around South Florida because it is technically the border. And so normally if someone's picked up in a traffic stop, they're going to be taken to ICE, right? But in some occasions, a Border Patrol station is actually closer. And so when we did our 6-hour ride along with the Highway Patrol earlier this month, the Florida Highway Patrol encountered 20 people, drivers and passengers, who were determined to be illegal immigrants. So one or two of them might have decided, I'm going to choose to self-deport. And so, you know, a couple each day starting to add up. And yeah, it's just another way to alleviate sort of the pipeline of people that are coming into custody because of everything Florida is doing to help ICE and help Border Patrol.
Of the 24 or so that have already opted into this program, is there a common country of origin that you're seeing?
No, the state has not shared that data with us, so we do not know.
So it could be anything from Mexico to Liberia to Sudan to whatever.
No, it's going to be really Central American countries is what they're focusing on. Typically, the illegal immigrant populations that you have that they're encountering are Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, and El Salvador. So generally, those a couple South American, but yeah, you're not seeing anything large scale like that.
And just to clarify, as far as them being stopped by State Highway Patrol in Florida, were any of the 22 or so that have gone away, were they wanted for other crimes that had been committed, or was it simply a traffic stop that led to this conversation in terms of self-deporting?
Yeah, all of them were encountered in traffic stops. So a broken taillight, dump trucks that didn't have the load sealed down for security purposes. All through those sorts of things, they encountered just a few who had been previously deported or had a criminal record in the United States and had made bail. And so, yeah, but most of them largely, I mean, everyone we encountered really was working and, you know, had overstayed a visa, had come in on parole under the Biden administration and that had expired,
Right.
had come over the border and was waiting to go to court, but hadn't had their day in court yet. And so now they will get to do that in when they're in ICE detention. The downside is if you choose to self-deport, you're saying, you know, you're skirting the process. So you don't have to, you might be able to come back one day to the United States because you haven't technically been deported, but you are choosing sort of to take that risk and proactively leave the country because you're here illegally.
So this wasn't a deportation as much as it was just transportation back home.
Yes, yes. When you choose to self-deport, you're not in federal custody. The state is transporting people from that Border Patrol station to Fort Lauderdale Airport. They will go through TSA security with the individual. They will walk them to the gate. They will watch them get on the flight. They will watch the flight back out and make sure it takes off. And then that individual is officially, you know, considered to have been repatriated on their own accord. And so they can sort of just check that off and say, you know, one less person that we have to send to ICE.
And, you know, not only does this save a lot of money, it saves a lot of time, it saves a lot of effort. And it truly does, in this case, make America safe again, make Florida safe again. So you've done these ride-alongs. The police basically see a broken taillight. That's reason to stop. Hey, stopped you for a broken taillight. Can I see your driver's license? Is that pretty much what happens?
Yeah, and police, even before this, even before they had the 287G authorities, were allowed to say, are you a U.S. citizen? And so the difference now is that some state and local law enforcement have been able to be deputized to carry out federal tasks. They go through a significant training program to just, you know, teach them about immigration laws and what to look for and how to, you know, all different sorts of things. And then they are then able to transport someone. So previously, let's say Florida Highway Patrol pulls over someone, they say, I'm not a U.S. citizen. And let's say for some reason they say, I'm in the country illegally. They just give themselves up to the police. The Florida Highway Patrol would contact Border Patrol or ICE nearby and say, hey, we have this situation. You know, do you want to come pick up the person? Because the state trooper cannot transport that individual to federal immigration authorities. And typically the feds would say, we don't have the resources, we're not able to, we're not just going to send one man out to get a guy who's a landscaper and in the country illegally. So the difference is now that Florida Highway Patrol encounters them, they bring that individual in their own car back to a Border Patrol or ICE facility. And Border Patrol or ICE will do the thorough, you know, check to ensure, yes, this person is in the country illegally, or actually it looks like they're not, there's a, you know, something good for them. And so that's who will make the official decision. And then they go through the whole legal process. It's not Border Patrol or ICE deciding to deport people. It's actually immigration judges, but they're in such short demand that they'll have to wait in detention before they can officially appear before a judge. And so that's where this self-deportation thing says, do you want to go through this nightmare process, or would you recognize you shouldn't be in the country, you made a mistake, and you're just going to opt to leave on your own accord, and we'll pay for your flight back home?
How many of the people that you saw ride-alongs said, "No, send me to ICE. I'll take my chances"?
They didn't disclose the 20 people that we encountered. They said all 20 were sent to Alligator Alcatraz, which is a state-run immigrant detention facility. So normally that's a federal responsibility, but the state has also been deputized to detain people in this manner. And at Alligator Alcatraz, there's room for about 2,000 people right now, and everyone there has previously been ordered by a judge to be deported from the country. So they've all gone through the entire legal process. It's just that ICE doesn't have the planes or enough people to put on a plane. They're not going to send 3 people on a plane to say Venezuela. They want to make sure that plane is full. And so they've got people all over the country who have been ordered to be deported to certain countries, but they're waiting for those planes and all the logistics and such to come through. And we just saw with the big, beautiful bill that's passed, all that funding is now coming through, and it needs to be disseminated and then carried out and actually put into operation. So I think we're going to start to see more of that.
So besides your dozens of border visits, tell us a little about your background investigating immigration trends, domestic violence, terrorism, things like that.
Yeah, so I've been with the Examiner a decade. Previously, was at other news outlets, and have been covering this issue since 2018. And really came on during the Trump administration, so seeing how President Trump was trying to build a wall, and covered that extensively. And then when President Trump left office in 2021 and President Biden came in, moved to Texas because we recognized there was a massive border problem unfolding across the southern border, but certainly in Texas. And was there for 3 years through the Biden administration at the heaviest parts that was being impacted. And so really gave us a firsthand perspective to see what's going on and affecting Texas communities and such. And then, when President Trump took office, it's really shifted from being an exterior issue, a border issue, to an interior issue. And so I was just telling someone last week, Texas, Greg Abbott, the governor there, was the leading sort of red state voice under Biden on border issues and immigration. And now we've really seen that shift to Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida, because the issue has shifted from a border issue to an interior issue. And Florida is really leading the charge, doing so many things, putting forth so many initiatives to help the Trump administration. Even with Alligator Alcatraz, encouraging all 67 counties to deputize as many of their deputies as possible to carry out these immigration laws, really leading the path there. And so I'm spending a lot of time now in Florida and within the interior of the country looking at what ICE is doing. And ICE is really, it's been a big story since January, but it's only going to continue to grow in the next few months from what we're seeing.
From what you're seeing with Alligator Alley, what is the left's big problem with this? Why do they hate this so much?
I think just the idea of, I think there's a lot of misunderstandings, misconceptions, even among lawmakers. Sometimes we see that. It's a detention facility. The idea that people are not getting fair treatment, that they're being detained and deported without due process. A lot of times we've seen people taken there. I have to explain very carefully that they're not being deported. They're being detained by ICE or Border Patrol, who will then, ensure they go through legal proceedings. But the primary complaints have been that it's not physically suitable for people to be in. I've been in Alligator Alcatraz. It was actually, I would say, nicer on a number of levels than other Border Patrol and ICE stations. Typically, those facilities are they've got cement walls, very small rooms. Those can be very cold as well. You have to use the restroom in the same room as everyone else with you. This was wide open spaces, very bright. There was some fences to make sort of little rooms within the big tents that have bunk beds in them. And that just provides for security. You can see straight across. Whereas if you had cement walls, you wouldn't be able to see what's going on, and you need to make sure everybody in there is okay, and for good airflow. So yeah, I didn't see the complaints, certainly.
I can attest to ICE detention facilities. We owned a detention facility in Shelby, Montana, in Fort Fairfield, Maine, and also in South Florida. And I'm in the real estate business. That's my day job. And not too many people can claim that they actually own property that was a jail. and,
Well, yeah.
and the conditions you just described were very much the case, even in the newer facilities that have been built, let's say, in the last 10 years or so. Glad to see Alligator Alcatraz is a nice place to be. If anyone watching or listening to us today want to ask our guests a question, call us at 520-771-5101 or send a message on Facebook. Thanks again for joining us, Anna. This is a new and unique state program which Florida taxpayers are paying for, which leads to two questions. What kind of opposition has developed from Florida taxpayers, and how long until a human rights lawsuit is filed to stop this deportation program? Anything in the air about potential lawsuits, or how do Florida taxpayers feel about this?
Yeah. We broke the story on the voluntary departures, the self-deportation thing. And to be honest, we found out the day we were with Florida Highway Patrol and had to wait 2 weeks to talk with Border Patrol and Florida Highway Patrol. The governor's office did not want it getting out at that point. And they still haven't formally announced it. They just sort of kept it on the DL because they really wanted to let things come out on their own when they were ready. So we haven't seen a lot of pushback. I think in general, it's once it is kind of better known, and if they expand it to ICE and other like you can opt in if you're at Alligator Alcatraz right now, but no one's opted in. I think we have yet to see big public pushback. We have seen immigration lawyers. I spoke with one, Aaron Reichland Melnick of the American Immigration Council in Washington, and he shared, we don't like this program. People might feel coerced. They have an hour or two to make a major life decision. They can't consult with lawyers, a number of reasons. And so that was the major concern. But legally, he was saying people aren't when they're leaving the country, they're not in federal custody. They're on their own. So it's hard to be upset with the decision that someone is making for themselves. And as long as you can't prove, and Border Patrol or ICE or Border Patrol isn't coercing anyone, giving them, as fair a shake as possible, he does believe it's on good legal ground to continue operating. And we haven't seen any lawsuits or complaints filed at this point.
Well, it doesn't mean somebody won't try. And luckily,
Yeah.
generally is a little more friendly court district area, federally speaking, to support something like this. If an illegal alien opts into Florida's program, are they prevented from seeking future legal immigration? I think you answered that, but just a little more clarity.
Yeah. So, the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and Secretary Kristi Noem have touted that if you choose to leave this country on your own, take your own flight out of the country, or, help the government fund your flight, but not go formally be deported, maybe we'll let you back in. You can try to come in legally, but it's very ambiguous language. And what the law shows is that it's going to be a 10-year wait at least for you to come back into the country. Yeah. So, and then if you get deported, it's going to be even more difficult. So certainly, under this administration, it won't be in place in 10 years, but another administration might not be as willing to let you in as well as this administration. So yeah, there's certainly, and that's what you have to consult before you make this decision. Yeah.
Can you talk about the new ICE pipeline that has Florida-trained state troopers transporting detainees to Border Patrol and ICE facilities?
So what does that look like exactly?
How does that work?
Yeah, so the state, in February or March, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, said he really pushed all 67 counties to deputize as many of their deputies to carry out some of these immigration laws. And at the front of that pack was Florida Highway Patrol, because they're state troopers. The state has more control over them than individual counties who decide their own what they want to do. And so they deputize, I believe, a couple dozen of those state troopers, and they have them in packs, maybe 5 to a dozen state troopers in certain regions of Florida. And they're going out every day. They're doing the same jobs they've always done. And some on the left I saw tweeting about this were saying, they're looking for immigrants, they're profiling. But what I observed was, that car has a window tint that we can't see through. That's illegal. Let's pull them over and talk to them. And then that's when you discover we encounter drivers too who are also U.S. citizens. And so some of them got tickets. Others had different issues, but that's the process they're going through. And so once they make that encounter, then they'll turn them over to the federal authorities. But it's really a way for the State Highway Patrol just making a few every day. Like they encountered 20 in a 6-hour ride along, and we were with a sergeant and then a handful of state troopers making their own stops here and there, popping in when we could. So they have had over 1,000 people arrested since the spring just through the Highway Patrol issue or initiative. And so that adds 1,000 more people that ICE would not have encountered. And so that's going into ICE already has more than 50,000 people in detention. The big beautiful bill is going to add more detention space, but they need somewhere to detain all these people coming into custody. And so even if this program to self-deport takes 26 more people off the list who need to go to ICE, that's 26 less beds that ICE needs to find around the country.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just incredible. Have there been interest from other states in following a similar program of Florida, either doing that, for instance, Arizona, Texas, detaining those people and either sending them to Florida or having their own ICE detention facility where they can do the same thing?
Yeah. So we haven't seen any states come out yet. The Department of Homeland Security is pushing. They've said there's 5 other states that they're in talks with for something like this. It's a really bizarre concept and the first time we've seen it. So ICE detention facilities are federal facilities. And what Florida has done is built its own facility, and under federal law is running that facility sort of in partnership with the government, but there's no one from ICE or private corporations that run ICE facilities on site. It's all state run. So they're basically babysitting people on behalf of ICE, and they have the authority to do that. So what other states might be doing it? I'm surprised, frankly, we haven't seen Texas do more to help the Trump administration. The border is very quiet right now, and Texas might just be in a recovery period. But I would expect to see a couple others. Oklahoma has been trying to help the administration in various ways, and I'm supposed to speak with the governor's office later today to see what they're doing. But yeah, I think it's a matter of time, really probably just a matter of weeks until the Department of Homeland Security starts to move forward and announce some of the other states it's going to partner with for similar types of sites.
Anna, we need to wrap up here pretty quick. Do you mind if we move our discussion to another article you just wrote in the Washington Examiner in the immigration area? A few days ago, I read your article about Mexico's desperate attempt to avoid a 1% tax on immigrant remittances back to their relatives in Mexico. Talk about that and the possibilities for revenue back to the United States and perhaps to help fund immigration efforts here.
Yeah, so the big beautiful bill included language to tax 1% on money that migrants here send to people out of the country. So that's someone who's a day laborer, makes maybe $100 a day and sends that $100 back to Mexico. So the U.S. would be taking $1 tax out of that. And the Mexican government makes billions of dollars every year in remittances, money sent back to people in Mexico. And so, I should say that money is going back to Mexico where it will be spent in Mexico. And so the U.S. recognizes that's money that we're not getting spent in the United States. So the Mexican government came up with a card through a government bank where people can have the money transferred to them without having to go to a Western Union and do the wire transfer. And so Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri has proposed legislation that goes far beyond the big, beautiful bill, would include a 15% tax on remittances. So really hit a lot harder. But it's another way. And what Eric Schmidt was telling me last week, the senator, was that this is an incentive for Mexico not to secure its border with the United States or its border with Guatemala, because as long as people are coming through illegally and then sending money back to Mexico and such, that's helping them. That's helping their GDP and their economy. And so why would Mexico want to lose less through a tax that the U.S. imposes?
Right on. Anna Giaritelli, thanks for joining us today on Inside Track. We're up against a break. Please tell our viewers and listeners how they can keep up with you.
Yeah, if they're on Twitter, I'm on there, Anna_Giaritelli, GIA. And that is the best way to follow me.
Great. Insiders, the Washington Examiner is a great source to help keep up on breaking news on a wide array of important topics. It should be on your favorites list. We're up against a break. It's been great talking together with you, Anna. Perhaps we can talk down the road. We're going to hear from some of our great sponsors so we can pay the man. We'll be right back with the balance of today's show, talking with super lawyer James Bopp about the Obama deep state conspiracy which sought to cripple the White House even before Donald Trump was sworn in to office in 2016. No channel flipping. That goes for you, Eb. You're watching Inside Track with Eb and Bruce on Live the Dream. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now a word from our sponsor.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about. Welcome back to Inside Track with Bruce and Eb. This portion of the show brought to you by Wilkinson Wealth Management. Eb helps gun owners with their retirement accounts, and he does a great job for my family, and he'll do the same for you and your family. Call him today at 520-777-1911. Eb?
Hey, Inside Track is also brought to you by Bruce's 60-year-old commercial real estate company, Paul Ash Commercial Real Estate. They make good things happen every day. We hope you'll also call on our good friend Eric Rudin's great team at Essential Pest Control. You can rely on Essential Pros. Call them at 886-3029 today to protect your home or business from all manner of pests. And by the way, Bruce, my place is still pest-free thanks to Eric and his great crew. And they truly did a wonderful job. Yeah. And finally, if you need steel products for your home, business, ranch, or farm, Call Jamie Kipper at Tucson Iron and Metal Surplus. They are Tucson's conservation specialists. Call them at 209-1576 or go to the yard at 701 East 36th Street. You will be amazed at their great products sold at wholesale prices.
Hey, Shay, can we get that play out for Mr. Bopp? Little background music for my friend Jim Bopp. All right. Thanks, Shay. All right. Eb and I are very pleased to introduce one of America's finest constitutional lawyers of his generation, a fearless constitutionalist who has achieved much success at the U.S. Supreme Court. He's fought for and written extensively on many of the most important issues of the day, from rights of the unborn, First Amendment, election law, and taxpayer rights. I've been fortunate to be a colleague and friend of Jim's for nearly 20 years. Welcome to the show again, Mr. Bopp.
Hey, really great to see you, Bruce, and great to be on again. And yes, our friendship is one of the most meaningful things in my life. So I have appreciated your friendship so much.
Back at you. Congratulations to you on being named. The reason we would have run the Indiana fight song anyway, but congratulations to you being appointed by Governor Braun to become a trustee at Indiana University. That's something that you're very interested in, isn't it?
It is, and higher education is critically important, and it's critically important that we get it right. And there's a lot of challenges in that area at this time, and Governor Braun wants to tackle those and right the ship, and I'm very honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, but it's a lot of work, and I know you're up to it. Let's take a brief ride in the Wayback Machine, Jim. You and I had a phone conversation about 1 a.m. your time in Indiana on election night 2016, when it looked pretty certain that Donald Trump would be elected the 45th president of the United States. I think we were both ecstatic and shared some tears of joy at the same time in anticipation of the future administration. At that moment, could anyone have imagined how high-ranking officials could have or would have attempted to turn our republic upside down for the next 10 years?
It's shocking, and it almost makes me emotional, because the corruption of our federal government that occurred, of course, beginning in 2016, before Trump was elected, and then reaching its pinnacle when he was elected. You would have hoped that we would have never reached this low point in our history, and with respect to the actions of government.
Look, who knew within just a few hours, I mean, literally just within a few hours, a nameless group or groups would swamp presidential electors with emails of the tens of millions to coerce GOP electors for Donald Trump to violate the law and cross over to cast their vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
I think that was really...
That was the Hamilton electors, where the idea was electors, despite the vote of the people, electing them to vote for a particular candidate, should vote their, quote, conscience, end quote, and what that meant, these liberals are running these ads, is you vote against Trump, even though you were elected to do that. Of course, the irony of the whole thing was there were very few Trump electors that were listening, and he only lost 1 or 2 votes, and as a result of that campaign, but almost half a dozen or more Clinton electors voted for somebody else other than Hillary Clinton. So it was really the liberals that were listening, not the conservatives, and unfortunately the outcome was not affected.
And the other thing, and I really didn't kind of put all of this together until the Gabbard statements in the last week or so. Even before the convention in 2016, the Republican National Convention, there was a group of conscience delegates who were put together in order to thwart a Donald Trump nomination. I won't go into some of the background about how they were put down like a dog that they were, but do you think that these people we never heard of before, and we haven't seen any of them later on, do you think this could have been part of a operation to screw up the convention as well?
Oh my gosh, I hadn't really thought of that, but you do wonder about those things. Frankly, I mean, one of the known strategies that your enemy will play is to have a fifth column, and a fifth column is people within your own group, at least you think is within your own group, that is actually being funded and run by the opposition.
Right.
And the whole purpose of a fifth column is to sow confusion and uh, create chaos within that organization. And now, fortunately, I did know a couple of them. One from North Dakota, and who wrote a book and explaining how delegates could vote however they wanted, and of course not vote for Trump. But so if he was a fifth columnist, he'd certainly been placed there decades before. So that seems unlikely.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big problem, and you and I, fought all these efforts to the number one, not to for Trump not to get nominated in 2016 after he had won the Republican primary in Indiana, my home state, where was the fork of the road, and he became the presumptive nominee, and all of us got on board 100% and fought those efforts to deny him the nomination.
Right. So then came wild stories about prostitutes in Russia, treason, supposedly by a well-known general. Subsequent plot was cooked up, allegedly, as we later found out, using the Steele dossier to suggest Vladimir Putin wanted Trump to win and had control of information, which potentially made him a Manchurian candidate and a Manchurian president, for that matter. I mean, it was just crazy, that period of time from November 9th all the way through to swearing in day on January 20th the next year, right?
Yes, and of course, one thing I've learned about the Democrats is that they routinely employ projection. And of course, this is in Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals.
Right.
That is, accuse the other side of what you, in fact, are doing.
Right.
So when it comes out that you in fact are doing these things, it sows a lot of confusion and just simply muddies the water. So of course the Democrats, including prominent officials in the FBI and the DOJ, people that were interacting with the FISA court, they were all peddling these known false accusations that Trump was cahooting with the Russians, when, of course, the Steele dossier was made up of Russian lies that the Clinton administration, the Clinton campaign, was peddling to the government and to the media, which resulted in terrible interference and investigations and all by our own government on the basis of lies.
Yeah. Jim, here's my co-host, Eb Wilkinson, who spent some time in your neck of the woods, but at a different university.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for joining us. I would have gone to IU, but you had to read. I ended up at Purdue.
Well, I
I
admire what Purdue has been doing recently under Mitch Daniels, who was our former Indiana governor, and then he served 10 years as president of Purdue and did simply remarkable things there. But I still must admit, I've always thought that going to Purdue revealed a character flaw. So maybe Bruce ferret that out for us, okay? What that might be.
I'll do my best.
And as soon as I figure out what that is, I'll let you know. Hey, calls for Trump's impeachment started even before he took office, and all this on the day of his inauguration, the violent protests started at the Capitol, followed by attempts from Democrat office holders to isolate anyone associated with Trump, to say nothing of the 51 so-called national security experts who tried to interfere with the election, inferring that he was a national security threat. Of course, these 51 later proved to be incorrect. Talk about...
Well, actually known lies, because the FBI had already determined by the time they signed on to that 51 letters, that the laptop was Hunter Biden's laptop was legit.
Right.
Why would they take the risk to do that? Were they not told ahead of time that the FBI verified it was real? Or did they not care?
Well, I think liberals judge themselves based upon their motives, not their results. And their motives, they think, are pure, and that's how they judge themselves. And of course, for some reason that's somewhat perplexing to me, what has become a motive within the left and the Democrat Party is this blind hatred for Trump, and fear that he's actually going to be consequential as far as his effect on the government, and that therefore has justified, as Saul Alinsky said in his Rules for Radicals, the means do justify the ends. So when you're a party of the government and you want to control the government in order to control everybody's lives, then without control of the government, I mean, we don't want, the only reason we want control of the government is to keep it out of our way.
Bingo.
The Democrats want control of the government because they want to control everybody's lives, right? And so the government is essential to the accomplishment of their ends. So when you have that mindset, I mean, just lying, it's whatever, whatever's necessary. Means justifies the ends, and their ends are pretty dark.
Have you ever seen such a widespread effort by the opposition party to cripple a president using such coordinated schemes?
No, and I go back to the time when I organized my high school for Barry Goldwater in 1964. So I have somewhat and that's kind of a joke because I was able to organize 30 people out of 1,000. So, but I like to pat myself on the back. But in any event, no.
By heart, he's still right.
Yes, he is, and so. And part of the reason is the Democrat Party is becoming more radical, right? There is definitely a difference between a liberal and a progressive. And a progressive is a huge step toward tyranny. Progressives believe in three things that are critical to their philosophy. One is that experts should make all the decisions. They should sit in some hermetically sealed room and issue directives that everybody is supposed to follow. The corollary to that is they're against individual freedom, because individual freedom stands in the way of the implementation of the directives of the experts. I mean, think COVID and COVID lockdowns and, shutting down churches and all that. Conservatives brought lawsuits, including me, just to have churches open, and then of course they're anti-democratic because they do not want, like everyday people like you and me or our representatives to be monkeying around or interfering with these directives from the experts. Think Biden saying, "I just follow the science," all right? That's exactly what he was saying. I just do whatever the experts say, and that means hell with democracy, hell with individual freedom. Our job is to follow the experts wherever it leads us. So they are not at all like liberals that existed when Bruce and I were in college, who were totally in favor of free speech, believed completely in democracy, were very respectful of opposing views, were perfectly willing to debate. All of that's out the door. And of course, it's the progressives that have been eating the liberals alive.
And they're not even hiding it now. Take a look at this. Zoran Mondami in New York City.
Jasmine Crockett,
AOC.
There's a whole host
Bernie
of them.
Sanders. But Bernie's always been honest about who he is.
Yeah.
He just is not quite honest about not being one of the oligarchs as he's flying around in a private jet to preach against oligarchy.
Yeah, to go to his 5 different homes and whatever. Yeah, it's remarkable how somebody who's spent every waking moment in working for the government, beginning in his 20s, can accumulate three houses, I think now. I may have said 5, I think 3, and multi millions of dollars. I don't know how that happens, but
Well, it's like they're doing insider trading or anything like that.
well, there's many multimillionaires in Congress right now who started off with nothing.
And made all that money in Congress. We heard DNI Chief Tulsi Gabbard lay out a case against those who participated in what she called a danger to our republic. Americans across the country want to see the prosecuting, starting with Barack Obama. How realistic is it, given the Supreme Court's decision last year on presidential immunity, that Obama might be prosecuted for his national security assessment, which unleashed so much hell in the Russia scandal?
Well, of course, what she's revealed is there was an intelligence assessment that was joined by all the intelligence agencies, I think also the FBI as well, which said basically that there were minor, fruitless efforts by the Russians to influence our election. They didn't have the capacity to really do anything, and there's no indication they did do anything effective in influencing our election. And then, of course, that was assessed by all the top heads of the CIA, FBI, et cetera, in a meeting with President Obama, where President Obama ordered that report to be completely revised. It would be fair to say, turned on its head, to emphasize the efforts that were made to influence the election and blowing those up. And then, of course, within hours, that was released to the mainstream media, secretly, of course, released to the mainstream media, and formed the basis of this huge lie that the Russians had influenced the election in favor of Trump. And the whole effort being to delegitimize his entire presidency, if not provide a basis for impeachment and removal. So now the question with respect to immunity, which is of course the case involving Trump, is there is limited immunity for the president. The president is subject to immunity for his official actions, but not his non-official actions. And of course, a president can be doing all sorts of things that aren't official. In other words, exercising his duties under federal law, both the Constitution and the statutes. And so the question would be, when Obama ordered the revision's an awful nice word for what he did, but the revision of the intelligence assessment, whether or not that was an official act or not. And that would be how the immunity question would be considered. Now, understand, there's all sorts of government officials with immunity. Judges have very broad immunity, again, for their official acts. Every public official that violates the Constitution by doing something that is unconstitutional has quasi immunity from damages. Okay, so they can be the only way that they can be held in account for damages is if it was already known clearly that what they were doing was unconstitutional. All right. So if there weren't already, cases that said if you do X, that's unconstitutional. Well, then you do X. Well, then you're not immune from damages. So there's all sorts of immunities out there. I think that's important to the operation of government, really critically important to the operation of government. But it's not unlimited.
So, with that being said, it's been nearly 10 years since a lot of this took place. How difficult was it going to be to prosecute operators in the scandal like James Clapper, John Brennan, James Comey, and others, given the amount of time that's passed and the immunity that you're talking about?
Well, statute of limitations, is just like many federal laws in this case, are complicated. They'll say you have to bring a particular crime within, such as perjury, say, within 2 years. Well, there's some exceptions to, it's called tolling of the statute of limitations. And that is if you don't discover it. All right. And so discovery, and you don't have reason to believe, that it exists. Okay. And then, but later you discover it. Well, usually the tolling, that means it's tolled so that the statute of limitations doesn't start running until discovery of it. Now, there's also a concept called a continuing crime. So, like a conspiracy to do a certain thing, there can be a series of acts to advance that conspiracy. Well, it's when the last act occurs that the statute of limitations begins, because that's when the conspiracy ends, is when the last act occurs. So these would both be things that, as to things that happened 10 years ago, would need to be examined to see whether or not there's either a continuing conspiracy with a last act within the statute, or that would be one, or the discovery issue. In other words, it wasn't discovered until later.
So, Jim, I understand your points on tolling. I understand the continuing conspiracy, continuing crime occurring. If the crime took place in Washington, D.C., how would you find a judge who would have the gumption to actually hear the case? Would this get thrown? Would it even be accepted by a court? And would it have to be Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I think it would. I mean, the issue there is recusal, all right, and of course, what you start off with recusal is if a judge feels, in his or her opinion, her subjective opinion, that they cannot be impartial for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what is their subjective reason. If they believe that, they should recuse, right? And so, like, it's not unusual in state court where in a county a charge is brought, a lawsuit is brought against the sheriff, or a lawsuit is brought against the mayor, the largest town, that a number of the judges there will recuse, and it'll really be because they don't want to get involved in the politics of it, because they stand for election. So that's not, you see that, all right? But for whatever reason, if a judge doesn't think that they can be fair, they definitely should recuse.
What are the
The
chances?
other,
We've
the,
political opinions of these judges seemingly out motivate the law.
Well, that is a problem, and is a problem particularly among liberal judges, because liberal judges do not believe, as conservative judges do, that you should interpret statutes based upon their meaning at the time that they were adopted and apply them equally to every person that comes before them. What they believe is that statutes should be construed based upon contemporary needs, and they believe in a living constitution that is basically an empty vessel. They can pour whatever public policy views they have into it. So both of those ideas, living constitution and contemporary needs, just simply means that liberal judges get to apply, use their policy views and substitute it for existing law. So, they have a whole legal theory that justifies them using their own personal policy preferences in rather than the law.
Yeah, so that falls under the it's not what the law says, it's what I say the law says.
What I say, but most importantly, what I say based upon my view of what's good policy, as opposed to when the people who wrote this, what they were trying to accomplish by the words that they used.
Jim, in our constitutional democracy, how do we avoid bad acting like this in the future except by seeking justice, being meted out to characters such as Obama et al.?
It's a very profound question because we have people that are not self-restrained. They've unleashed themselves based upon these various dynamics that we've been discussing. They feel they're fully justified in everything that they do because the means justifies the ends, and the ends are so terribly important to them and to their ideology. And the only answer that I have to that is accountability. The irony is, if you look historically, you can see excesses by the Republicans. I mean, Watergate was an excess, right? It wasn't a coup like the Obama was trying to engineer, but it was a wrongful act, a significant wrongful act, because it was against the Democrat campaign headquarters, and the people that were associated with that, up to the president of the United States, paid serious consequences. Right? Then you look during the Obama administration, or you look at Clinton's server, for instance, just as one little thing, right? What were the consequences for anyone? When President Clinton was lying about Monica Lewinsky and sending out all of his minions, including cabinet secretaries and chairman of the DNC and every member of Democrat Congress, saying, well, this is a complete lie. He never, had any affair with her. And when it all came to light, that it was an all big lie that he actually had, what were the consequences for anyone? Not a single Democrat who was asked to lie by Clinton and did, not a single one resigned in disgust.
Nor anybody in the Biden administration. Jim, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show. We're actually a little bit over, and that's going to do it for today's show. Jim Bopp, one of America's great lawyers, thanks for your briefing today. Keep up the fight to defend the Constitution. We look forward to more discussions with you down the road. Many thanks also to Washington Examiner reporter Anna Giaritelli on what state government can do to resolve illegal immigration. Thanks for joining us. Until next Wednesday when we return, this is Bruce Ash
and Eb Wilkinson,
wishing you all a good day. Be sure to join us again in 167 hours. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.